September 1908. A 25-year-old man named Oliver Hill is on the run. He'd been running a small lumber company in Alabama, the Acre Hill Lumber Company. The business model was simple: buy lumber on credit from suppliers across the country, sell it for cash in Alabama, pocket the cash, don't pay the suppliers. It worked for a while. Then the suppliers started talking to each other. The Babcock Brothers Lumber Company in Indiana sued him. The U.S. Postal Service opened a mail fraud investigation. Warrants were issued for his arrest. Bankruptcy proceedings followed. Oliver Hill disappeared. By December of that year, he'd resurfaced in Washington, D.C. with a new name. He'd started introducing himself as Napoleon, his middle name, and a brand new origin story. He told people he just had a private audience with Andrew Carnegie, the richest man on earth, in Carnegie's 64-room New York mansion. He said Carnegie had personally commissioned him, a 25-year-old fugitive, to spend the next 20 years studying the world's wealthiest men and writing down their secret formula for getting rich. Almost none of that was true, but 29 years later, this same man would publish a book selling that secret. And that book, Think and Grow Rich, would go on to sell over 100 million copies, more than any personal finance book in history, by a wide margin. This is the story of how a serial con man wrote the most influential wealth book ever printed, and why, despite everything wrong with him, the book still works. Let's start with the man. Napoleon Hill, real name Oliver Napoleon Hill, was born in 1883 in a one-room cabin in Pound, Virginia. Real poverty. His mother died when he was 9. His father was an unlicensed dentist who distilled illegal liquor on the side. Hill was, by every measure historians can find, a magnetic personality and a habitual liar. He married his first wife at 15. The marriage was annulled. His second wife divorced him in 1908. The same year.
Gentlemen, hear me out. This venture promises great returns. I need your support to proceed. Together, we can achieve this.
Violence in the home. The Alabama lumber fraud wasn't a one-time mistake, it was the start of a pattern. In 1909, Hill founded the Automobile College of Washington. In 1912, the trade magazine Motor World accused the college of being a scam, calling its marketing materials a joke to anyone of average intelligence. The college went bankrupt that same year. Students were never paid for their labor assembling cars. Next came the George Washington Institute, closed in 1918 after student fraud allegations. In 1919, the Federal Trade Commission brought charges against Hill and his magazine Hill's Golden Rule. The charges, fraudulent advertising and laundering money meant for a veterans charity into a fake oil stock scheme. He claimed throughout his life to have personally advised 2 U.S. presidents, Woodrow Wilson and Franklin D. Roosevelt. He even claimed he came up with FDR's most famous line, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." Historians have searched. There is no evidence Hill ever met either president. None. He claimed Andrew Carnegie personally commissioned him on a 20-year mission to discover the laws of success. Carnegie biographers can find no record of the meeting. Even Hill's own official biographers, writing on behalf of the Napoleon Hill Foundation, eventually conceded that the published transcripts of Hill's conversations with Carnegie were a somewhat contrived conversational format. Academic language for, we made it up. He claimed he interviewed 500 of the wealthiest men in America: Carnegie, Edison, Ford, Rockefeller, Schwab. Researchers have only ever been able to verify one of those interviews, Thomas Edison. So why are we still talking about this man in 2026? Because in March of 1937, in the deepest year of the Great Depression, with 1 in 4 Americans out of work and the country desperate for any reason to believe tomorrow could be better than today, Hill published Think and Grow Rich. His fourth wife, Rosa Lee Beeland, did significant writing and editing work on it. The royalties were put in her name to protect them from creditors and from Hill's previous wife. When Beeland and Hill divorced 3 years later, she kept those royalties. That detail rarely makes it into the legend. The book caught fire immediately. By the time Hill died in 1970, it had sold more than 20 million copies. By 2015, that number had crossed 100 million. That makes it not just the best-selling personal finance book ever written. It's one of the best-selling books in any category in the entire history of publishing. Tony Robbins says he reads it every year. Earl Nightingale credited it as the foundation of his career. Bob Proctor built a multi-decade empire teaching its principles. Will Smith, Tom Brady, and Oprah Winfrey are all on record about its influence on them. So here's the obvious question. How did a book written by a fraud, about interviews that mostly didn't happen, sourced from a mentor relationship that probably never existed, become the most influential wealth-building book in human history? The answer is uncomfortable. The book works, or more precisely, the principles in the book work. Hill didn't invent them, he gathered them, dressed them up, and packaged them at exactly the right moment in history. Here's what's actually in Think and Grow Rich. Hill lays out 13 steps, what he calls the principles of the philosophy of achievement. Step 1, desire. Not a vague wish, a specific, burning, written down desire for a specific amount of money by a specific date in exchange for specific service rendered. Step 2, faith. Active belief that you will achieve the desire, repeated daily until your subconscious mind accepts it as fact. Step 3, autosuggestion. Reading your written goal out loud, morning and night with emotion. What we today call visualization or affirmation or self-talk. Step 4, specialized knowledge. Not general education, specific skills applied to your specific goal. Step 5, imagination, forming the plan. Step 6, organized planning. Breaking the imagined plan into a written sequence of steps. Step 7, decision. The habit of deciding promptly and changing your mind slowly. Step 8, persistence. Refusing to quit when the early evidence is bad. Step 9, the mastermind. Hill's most cited contribution to the genre, the idea that you should surround yourself with a small group of capable, ambitious people who actively support each other's goals. The remaining steps drift into more mystical territory that gives critics their ammunition. The subconscious mind, the sixth sense, the so-called transmutation of sexual energy into creative drive. And throughout the entire book, Hill teases what he calls the secret. He never quite states it directly. He hints that you'll discover it on your own if you read carefully enough. He claims Andrew Carnegie whispered it to him. In a later book, in 1967, Hill finally spelled it out plainly. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. That's it. That's the secret. Strip away the fraud, the manufactured Carnegie meeting, the pseudoscience about cosmic vibrations and sixth senses. And what's left is a remarkably durable set of behavioral principles. Write your goals down. Specific amount, specific date. Read them every day with the emotional intensity. Acquire the specialized skills you actually need. Make a plan. Break it into steps. Surround yourself with ambitious, capable peers. Persist past the point most people quit. Believe, in advance of evidence, that the outcome is possible. Modern behavioral science backs almost every one of those. Goal-setting theory, pioneered by Edwin Locke in the 1960s, confirms that specific, written, challenging goals reliably outperform vague intentions. Self-efficacy research from Albert Bandura confirms that belief in your ability to execute predicts execution. The mastermind idea is just an early articulation of what we now call high-trust peer accountability. And it's central to everything, from Alcoholics Anonymous to startup accelerators to the world's most expensive private mentorship groups. None of this was original to Hill. He found it in the air of the era. He repackaged it, he dramatized it, he fabricated a credible-sounding origin story for it, and he sold it to a country that, in 1937, needed permission more than it needed information. That's the real reason Think and Grow Rich became the best-selling wealth book ever written. It arrived at the moment America had no money and no reason to believe more was coming, and it handed people a free, repeatable, daily ritual they could perform to feel like they were doing something. Write down what you want, read it out loud, believe it, act on it. For tens of millions of readers, that small daily ritual was the difference between giving up and getting up. So, what do you do with all of this? You don't have to choose between worshiping Napoleon Hill and dismissing him. There's a middle path, and it's the only honest one. Be careful where your ideas come from. The most polished origin story is almost always the most manufactured one. When a guru tells you he was hand-selected by a billionaire to discover a secret hidden from the public, that's the moment to ask for receipts. Hill never had any. Most of his modern descendants don't either. But also, ideas can be true even when the person delivering them isn't. The 13 principles in Think and Grow Rich, stripped of the mysticism and the invented backstory, describe a real and well-documented pattern in how some people actually build wealth. Clear goals, specific plans, specialized skills, persistent action, trusted peers, belief that precedes evidence. These principles worked before Hill borrowed them. They worked while he was teaching them. They'll work after the world has forgotten who he was. The con man invented his life. He didn't invent the laws he claimed to discover. Take the principles, leave the man. That, in the end, is the lesson. Think and Grow Rich was always quietly teaching, even if its author was the last person on earth qualified to teach it.